Alright, so we're checking out the BROWEY PN-C600 portable power station, and obviously the trick up its sleeve here is it has a folding solar panel built into the power station, and I have it deployed here, and there's a stand on the other side. It is kind of I guess what you would call a suitcase style power station. Obviously, to accommodate the solar panel, it's a 30-watt built-in solar panel. And you can also plug in external solar panels as well. I'll talk about that here shortly. So of course, in addition to the power station, you get a bunch of accessories. I'll point out exactly what all these are in the manual. Here is the manual. It's pretty good. You get some other certifications, documentation. This power station is UL certified. So the manual comes in English, German, Spanish, French, and Italian. It's only about 12 pages, but it's very well documented. So here are all the important specifications. 614.4 watt hours, 10.5 kilograms, about 23 pounds. Here is the dimensions. So you can see it's about 436 by 339. So obviously kind of suitcase style and kind of narrow. It is, of course, a bit on the large size and heavy size for a power station of this capacity, around 614 watt hours. But of course, it has a 30-watt solar panel built in. The chemistry here is lithium iron phosphates, pretty standard these days, and with that you get a lot more charge cycles, so 3500 to 80% capacity, which is basically about, I think about 10 years to 80% capacity on this particular power station. We'll talk about all the inputs and outputs there on the side of the panel. I'll point them out, but yeah, you have a DC input, a 5521 barrel connector that can take 12 to 30 volts up to 4.5 amps. And so you can connect up the car charger adapter, solar panels that are within this voltage range and amp rating, and of course the built-in power supply, of course. I'll show you that here momentarily. You get two DC 5525 barrel connector for 12 volts and 10 amps out, as well as a cigarette lighter port. So you have a built-in pure sine wave inverter, and outputs 110 volts, rated to 600 watts continuous, and it does burst to 1200 watts, but I'll talk about that in a little bit later. It doesn't really burst for very long. Get two USB A's at 5 volts and 3 amps, 9 volts, 2 amps, or 12 volts and 1.5 amps. And you have a USB-C power delivery, which will go up to 65 watts at these various voltage and amp ratings. And of course, this power station comes with all of your typical protection, high and low temperature protection, low voltage protection, over discharge protection, overcharge protection, overload protection, short circuit, and over current protection. So this is pretty standard for most power stations. And just for reference, here are some of the things you could potentially charge up with this power station from full to empty. For example, a laptop of 50 watt hours, you can do up to 12 charges. Just an example, but pause the video if you want to see some of these other examples. Alright, so here's what comes in the entire package. You get the power station, of course. You get this little bag that holds all the accessories, car charging cable, power adapter. And you get this DC output-input cable. And then you get the user manual, of course, which we're looking at. And then 10x of these DC plug conversion adapters. And then these are all the different plugs that those are. So they're labeled A, B, C by letter, and then what they are. So for example, C is a 5525 adapter, and this is what they all look like. And then you see they have little letters on them, and then they're basically 5521 to whatever the other end is for adapters. It's pretty nice. So if you want to charge up this power station with different solar panels with different plugs, this will help you with that. Or if you want to use the power station with this included DC to DC cable, you can use that adapter to plug in 12 volts to a variety of different devices, because obviously not every device has the same type of plug, and this will work with a variety of those different types of plugs. Here's the car port adapter, 12 volts at 10 amps, and that is the 5521 barrel plug. This is the AC adapter, so it's 24 volts at 5 amps, so 120 watts output in this one. And here's what the power station looks like folded down. So the panel folds down like this, and here's the other side with the stand, so you can adjust your angle, got a carrying handle here. All the plastic is fairly thick, and you got some rubber, I guess, bumpers here in various spots around the power station down here below. I think this should be able to handle a fair amount of abuse. It feels very solid. So on this side, you have your display and all of your connectors. We'll cover those here momentarily. Nothing else on the other side except for some ventilation holes. So of course you have your display here. Turn it off, hit this, and this will give you your readout of your battery percentage. It is like a little bar, so it's in 20% increments. I wish it would give you a actual number, but it doesn't. If you want this to stay on, you just turn on the DC section here, and then the screen will stay on. It shows your output here along with your watts in terms of output. If you're charging up the power station via solar or the input port, which is over here behind this little flap. This is the 5521 input port here. So this is where you can plug in the AC adapter, the car port adapter for charging through your car cigarette lighter adapter, and then also through solar panels. And then these are the 5525 barrel plugs for DC output 12 volts at 10 amps. And then the DC output here on the cigarette lighter is also 12 volts and 10 amps. But when they're charging via the input port here, this will say in, and it'll show you the number of watts going in. So behind this flap here is your USB ports. You have USB-C at 65 watts. This is USB-C power delivery. And then you have your quick charge 3.0 USB-A ports at 18 watts. You have two of those. And then of course you have your AC section. You press that button, the fan kind of briefly turns on, and then it shows you have your DC out on as well as your AC out on, and it shows your output in watts. So this is going to be total of output, whether if you have both DC and AC going at the same time. This will be your complete total output from the whole power station. When the AC is on, it shows you you're at 110 volts at 60 hertz, and then the AC port is behind this little flap right here. So these, I don't know, I kind of like them, kind of hate them. They kind of get in the way, but this, I guess, for outdoor use is going to be pretty useful. It will help keep things kind of splash proof. I don't think this is waterproof, but they do cover up all the, the ports from being exposed to the elements. So if you are using this for like camping, it should keep things relatively safe. So overall, the power station performed very well. It performs pretty much exactly as specified in the manual. And the 600 watt inverter on this does actually, maintain a fairly consistent 600 watts, maybe a little bit more than 600 watts for a fairly long time without kicking off. So if you're worried if it's going to be able to handle 600 watts continuously, I did test that and it seemed fine. Now, if you do go over the 600 watts, so I did try something that was in the 700 watt range, that will work for a little while. I mean, maybe like a few seconds, 10 seconds or so. But if it's a continuous draw of 700, or actually more than like, say, 650 watts, I'd say, just to be safe, the over current protection will kick in and then the inverter will shut off. So I think the inverter is designed to burst to 1200 watts, but for very brief moments, because there are certain kinds of devices like heaters, that kind of thing, that will kick on, and then there'll be a huge surge of current for a fraction of a second or maybe a second or so, and then it'll come down to its nominal current, which is a lower amount. And as long as it doesn't exceed that for an extended period of time, 600 watts, this inverter can handle that no problem. Now, the performance of the built-in solar panel is as advertised. I did put this in the sun at the correct angle with no clouds, and it gave me a solid 30 watts. And so, it's not a huge solar panel, but in a pinch, if you're just, using this by itself without any additional solar, it will charge up the power station, although it'll be a little bit on the slow side. And of course, you can attach additional solar panels via the 5521 barrel connector input connector. I did try a 100 watt panel. It wasn't optimally placed, and I was getting roughly 60 some watts. I think on that panel, optimally placed was going to be like around 80 watts, but I thought that the 62 watts was pretty good for that situation. All of the other testing worked just fine. The USB-C power delivery does go up to 65 watts, but no more. And the quick charge 3.0 ports work as advertised, no problem. Anyway, overall, pretty happy with this product. The link will be down in the video description if you guys want to check it out. That'll do it for this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.